Very good evening and welcome to News Plus Primetime News here on MTV Sports. I'm Ramesh Irugal Bandara.
And I'm Sonali Vanigabadage. We start off with a look at tonight's headlines.
The Champions Torch Relay travels from Vaunia to Mana. Farmers in several areas take to the streets over water. The sluice gates of several reservoirs including Castlereagh and Lakshmana opened.
On to the news in detail. A public health inspector who was participating in a dengue eradication program was beaten to death. According to the police, the PHI had been assaulted when he attempted to inspect a residence. The victim was a PHI by the name of Muhammad Jalil.
The public health inspectors of the Thambalagamu Medical Centre engaged in a program to distribute mosquito nets in the Salyapura area. They had also inspected houses for dengue breeding places. According to the police, a resident of Parakum Road in Salyapura had got into an argument with the PHI when he was inspecting his property. The police added that the son of this resident had assaulted the PHI, Muhammad Jalil. When he came chasing us, I told him to run. All 6 of us moved away. We ran all the way to the road, but he chased us with a pounder. He came from behind and assaulted the PHI. The PHI then collapsed. 52-year-old Muhammad Jalil, who suffered a blow to his head, passed away after being admitted to the Kantale Base Hospital. According to the police, the individual who committed the crime has been arrested and has been identified as a former member of the Civil Defence Force. PHI Muhammad Jalil was a resident of the Kinya area and a father of 5. Meanwhile, the Minister of Health, Maithripala Sirisena, has instructed the authorities to strictly enforce the law when dealing with the individuals connected to the murder of the public health inspector. A release issued by the Ministry of Health notes that it vehemently condemns the incident where a PHI was assaulted when he was carrying out duties related to the eradication of dengue. The release adds that the law enforcement authorities have been instructed to take stern legal action with regard to the incident so as to ensure that there is no repetition.
President Mahinda Rajapaksa paid his last respects to consultant Dr. Geethanjana Mendes this morning.
Former Director General of the Institute for Sports Medicine and Presidential Advisor, Consultant Dr. Geethanjana Mendes passed away on Saturday. The President arrived at the residence of the late Geethanjana Mendes to pay his last respects and convey his condolences to the members of the family. Meanwhile, the President also paid his last respects to Somadasa Vithanage, a father of veteran journalist Aryasri Vithanage, at his residence in Mount Lavinia this morning.
Well, protests are being held in several areas over the water issue. Now, when paddy farmers in Polonnaruwa stage protests for water to be supplied properly, potato farmers in Uaparnagama state that unauthorized constructions have caused damage to the Uma-Oe catchment areas.
Farmers of 7 villages in the Nuvaragala division in Siripura, Polonnaruwa engaged in a protest stating that sufficient water was not being received for their farmlands. They staged the demonstration blocking the Nuvaragala-Siripura main road. Meanwhile, the protesters who received information that Minister of Health Maithripala Sirisena was at the Nuvaragala divisional office of the Mahavali authority proceeded there. Security had been tightened in the area. Once the minister stated that solutions will be provided to the issues faced by the farmers, the protest was called off. The issues raised by you are very reasonable. I would like to say that I would speak to the Director General of the Mahavali Authority and the Minister of Irrigation and seek immediate solutions to the issues faced by you. Farmers in Polonnaruwa staged a demonstration near the Lakeview Junction in Polonnaruwa requesting water to be supplied for their farmlands. They alleged that although the Parakrama Samudra has plenty of water, sufficient water is not supplied for their farmlands. Our correspondent stated that due to this protest, traffic along the Colombo-Batticaloa road was disrupted. We haven't received water for 11 days. All our paddy lands are being destroyed. All that we are asking for is water for our paddy lands. That's it. The irrigation engineer of the Parakrama Samudra also arrived at the location. Although he assured that the amount of water released from the Parakrama Samudra will be increased within 2 hours, the farmers did not accept it. Thereafter, the irrigation engineer was taken away from the location by the police. A group of representatives of farmers' associations were given the opportunity of meeting the irrigation director of the Polonnaruwa zone, RMP Karunaratne, through the intervention of the police. The protesters dispersed after solutions were provided to their issues. Farmers of Uva Paranagama carried out a protest this morning at the Ambagasdova junction to register their opposition to the unauthorized constructions in the Uma Oya catchment areas. They said that the destruction caused to the Uma Oya catchment area has resulted in a decrease in water levels, leaving less water to be supplied for irrigation purposes. Transportation along the Ambagasdova Valimada main road was hindered for about 3 hours due to the protest.
We need immediate solutions to these issues.
They also request the Barak Plain tank to be renovated. Over Provincial Minister A.M. Buddhadasa also arrived at the location. Once an assurance was given that a meeting would be arranged with the President or the Minister of Economic Development to discuss their issues, the protesters dispersed.
The sluice gates of the Lakshpana, Canyon and Vimalasurendra reservoirs have been opened following heavy rain in the area. Now, the Assistant Director of the Disaster Management Centre in Nuarali has said that as a result, residents on either side of the river from Pulpitia to Canyon should remain cautious.
2 sluice gates of the Canyon Reservoir were opened this afternoon. 3 sluice gates of the Laksapana Reservoir have also been opened. This is the footage we recorded at the Vimalasurendra Reservoir this afternoon. 6 sluice gates of the reservoir had been opened. The water levels of reservoirs were extremely low over the past few days. It is doubtful as to whether sufficient rains have been received. As of 8:30 this morning, Canyon received a rainfall of 15.2 millimeters. Laksapana and Kasaragod received a rainfall of about 7 millimeters. So areas near power plants have received less than 20 millimeters of rainfall. Director General of the Mahaweli Authority, Gamini Rajakaruna, speaking to News First, said that water levels of reservoirs under the authority had not increased significantly. He said that the water levels of reservoirs were currently at around 32% of capacity. News First reported last month that the water levels of reservoirs under the Mahaweli Authority and the Department of Irrigation had decreased rapidly. The Department of Irrigation revealed last month that the water levels of the Kotmale, Victoria and Randanigala reservoirs in the Mahaweli scheme had reduced to 30, 20 and 42% respectively. At the time, reservoirs under the purview of the Irrigation Department too had low water levels. News First revealed that given the situation, croplands in several districts were facing the risk of being destroyed.
Now, experts point out that the use of rainwater must be optimized through proper management in the future.
Now, in any country, the water management is utmost important because, even when it comes to the Sri Lankan context, we are a purely agricultural-based country. Therefore, people are always asking for water for the agriculture, and even for the electricity, we need a substantial amount of water. But unfortunately, still we have not seen that the government has proper policy to manage water. When it comes to the tanks, water, most of the cases we have seen that some of the occasions it were fully, filled, and within another couple of months, the government says that no water at all, because the government still they do not have a proper or appropriate policy to manage its water. These things arise because of poor water management.
Outgoing German ambassador to Sri Lanka, Jens Plotner, says Sri Lanka should move in the right direction and that there needs to be steady progress in terms of reconciliation and accountability. He expressed this view to News First Shamir Rasuldeen in Colombo today, a day before his departure from Sri Lanka.
Is the German government satisfied the manner in which Sri Lanka has progressed following the end of the conflict?
I would say two things. I would say on the one hand, there has been remarkable progress concerning reconstruction in the north and the east. Roads, schools, electricity, water. A lot has been done, and I think the government is doing really a significant effort in this field. But as I always believe, and as I think we know from many other countries, winning the war and rebuilding bridges and roads is one thing. Building peace and reaching out to the hearts and minds of all citizens is something else.
The Chancellor of Germany, Helmut Kohl, said that time and space is needed for Germany to rebuild following the reunification. A similar sentiment was expressed by President Mahinda Rajapaksa as well following the end of the conflict here in Sri Lanka. However, that seems to have fallen on deaf ears.
My ears weren't deaf. As you said, as a German especially, we know a little bit more, unfortunately, because it's a painful experience. We know a little bit more about reconstruction and reconciliation than other more luckier people in the world. And you're right, Helmut Kohl made that statement, and it is our intimate belief that these things take time. But what is important, I think, is that from day one, the direction in which you're going is right. It might be a long journey, but the direction has to be right and there needs to be steady progress. So nobody is expecting 2 years after the end of the war, reconciliation is over, everybody loves each other, all problems are solved. That wouldn't be realistic.
Mr. Ambassador, you say that time and space is needed. Am I right?
Yeah.
In May 2009, Ambassador, just a few days after Sri Lanka won the war, 17 countries, including Germany, voted a resolution of the UN Human Rights Council saying war crimes should be investigated. However, time and space was not given at that particular moment, including Germany. I want to know, what was the sentiment at that time? What was the notion that was going through the minds of the German government when this resolution was tabled?
I think what was on our minds is the underlying understanding we have that in order to reach real sustainable peace in a society, you need to face the past. It might take some time, but at one point, earlier or later, you need to face the truth of the past. You cannot build a peaceful society on silence.
In the government's defense, Mr. Ambassador, they could say that the international community has not given them time and space to rebuild. Do you agree with this?
If I might remind you, right after the war, there was this sentence of 0 casualties, which I think to everybody who lived in the country during the conflict seemed quite unrealistic. 2 years later, we've moved a bit, and I think today the government states the obvious, that of course in such a major military operation there has been a significant number of victims. So the question is, how did these people die? And I think, it's not because in Berlin or in Paris, Washington or London people want to know. It's because people in Sri Lanka want to know.
Well, you can watch the full interview with the outgoing German ambassador Jens Plotner next Monday at 9:45 p.m. on MTV Sports.